Hello, everybody. My name is Scott, and I work with the Multicultural Association with the Employment Services Department. Today, I'm going to be doing a presentation on email etiquette. And email etiquette is just a way of saying the proper ways of conducting or creating an email, all right, especially in a professional side. So making sure you're following a good format, making sure that it's professional, that will really help you attain employment if that's your goal, but also it's a good tool and a skill to have when you're sending emails in general, right? It's good to look professional no matter what the scenario. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So first things first, when you're sending an email, you need to make sure that the email that you're using is professional. So have a professional email address to start off with, okay? So you should always have an email address that mentions your name or something that's familiar with you so that the recipient will know exactly who they're receiving it from. They won't think it's spam or from somebody unknown. If it looks professional, people tend to pay more attention. All right. So never use an address that can make reference to anything that could be misinterpreted or could be characterized as unprofessional. So what does that look like? So bad examples would be these examples here. So you have sportsguy.313@hotmail.com. It's not a professional email to use, right? You can certainly use an email like that, but it would have to be more on a personal, informal side, right? Maybe your spam email account. But when you're trying to apply for a job, something like this will not be professional enough. Okay, same with a name and then a bunch of numbers afterwards, or just numbers in general. If your whole email address is just like the last example here, 67498, and then so on, it's not memorable, and it could be construed as something that's not professional or that somebody does not want to read, right? Maybe if I'm receiving an email from an email like that, I might think that it's spam or I don't have any idea who that's coming from. So always make sure that you're using emails that are professional, and a good way to start is to use your personal name, all right, and work around that. So here are some good examples of emails to use. And if you have to create a new one because your old one is not to this standard, do it, create a new email. It'll make a big difference. So let's say you could just use my name. So employmentscott@gmail.com. Employment Scott, it makes sense. I work with employment services and it's my name. So people will know who's sending that, right? The best example is just your first and then your last name, followed by the email address. So john.snow, or in my case, scott.pettigrew at whatever email. Here I have some initials, so SD Pettigrew, those are my initials. You can use that, or perhaps an organization or something that you're part of. So these are examples of good emails, right? They're a lot more professional than this, right? This doesn't really look too professional. So if yours looks like this, consider changing it or creating something new. You can't change an email, but you can create a new one. And you can use that new one, which looks perhaps something like this, to do all of your more professional business, right? So it's good to have multiple emails. I do, and I think most people do as well. So something to consider. Oops, sorry. So next, include a clear, direct subject line. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, a clear, direct subject line is something that you'd want to add to make sure that the person who's reading it knows exactly what you're going to be talking about in the email. So examples of a good subject line include something like meeting date changed, or quick question about your presentation, or suggestions for the proposal. Just an idea of what the email is going to be about. And this has to be, professional enough and to the point. People often decide whether they're going to open an email and read it based on the subject line, okay? So, something like this. You have my email there, and then in the subject field right here, follow-up and feedback request. Just something simple, not too long, not too short, and proper spelling, all that stuff, okay? Having this is a good start to sending a proper email. Next, include a signature block. So provide your reader with information about you, contact information, perhaps your position, other things, okay? You'll see what I mean in a second. Your signature block should include, like I said, your full name, perhaps the company name if you're already working, contact information, especially the phone number, okay? Because you are contacting them by email, so they can just reply, but give them another option like a phone number so that if they want to talk to you, they can call you. You can also add a little publicity for yourself, but don't go overboard with any sayings or artwork, okay? Use the same font type and color as the rest of the email. That's really important. I would not really use multiple different fonts or colors, maybe a different font, but try to keep it the same color. You know, if your email is written in black font and your signature card is red, it's probably not a good idea. So the reason mine here is blue is because they're links. I don't choose the color. Everything would be white if it were not a link, but if you click on any of these, it'll take you to a page. But you can see that for the most part, the font is all the same. My font is, or sorry, the color is all the same. It's white on white for pretty much everywhere, okay? So these are two examples of two different emails that I have, right? And these are my signature cards. So signature cards are found at the end of an email, and it's just almost like a sign out, right? This is who I am, this is who I work for, this is my contact information. So make sure that it is proper and well formatted, there's no spelling mistakes. Having this can really help the professional look overall. Let me just go back to this. So you can see here, I have my name, I have the organization that I'm working for, I have my phone number as well, and then I've also included an alternate email. So this is an email that if they want to contact me by other means, or I'm not replying to this one for whatever reason, I'm giving them another method of contacting me. Okay. And then this one here, this is actually my current email signature card for the Multicultural Association. At the bottom, you can see there's actually links. So when I said you can market yourself right here, right? That would be an example. You know, I'm marketing the company, I'm marketing the things that we're doing. So the web page and then our Facebook group and all that stuff, okay? Use professional salutations or greetings would be another word. So when starting your email, make sure to use a professional expression like hello or good morning, good afternoon, or dear blank, whatever the person's name is. If you're contacting somebody directly or know them more informally, you could include their name, right? So let's say we had been talking, you and I, for a week. We already made a connection. You don't have to address me as Mr. Pettigrew or anything like that. If we've been acquainted before, you can just use my first name, right? But on the first email, it's probably good that you use somebody's last name, right? So Mr. Pettigrew or Mr. Jones or whatever. That would probably be the best way to contact somebody, okay? It's important to remember that people from different cultures speak and write differently, especially write, okay? They'll communicate differently by email. So it's important to know that, especially in this context where we're working with people from very, very different cultures, tons of different cultures. I need to know which cultures reply and write in certain ways. And you have to remember the same thing on your side. As a newcomer coming to Canada, Canadians typically are to the point, depending on what business, what type of email you're sending or which company you're sending it to, for example. There are some businesses that are quite relaxed and laid back, but for the most part in Canada, we are straight to the point. We typically don't write very, very long emails. We don't try to get to know somebody too deeply. An exchange of conversation is formal and then becomes informal later, whereas it would be the opposite for certain cultures, right? So, for example, high context cultures like the Japanese or Arabs or Chinese, they want to get to know you a bit before doing business with you. Therefore, people from these countries tend to be more personal in their writings at the beginning. So they'd be more friendly, or they'd want to make a connection with you before getting to the business, right? Whereas Germans and North Americans and Scandinavians, it's kind of the opposite. They are low context cultures. They just get straight to the point very quickly, right? So that's important when you're messaging somebody from a different culture or a different background, because these things can have a big difference, right? So if you're coming from a high context background and you're trying to get to know somebody in Canada, trying to be really friendly, and then you get a very abrupt, short reply from a North American, for example, don't take that to heart. It's just the way that we do business. So learning these things is important, and you, of course, will learn them over time, but you can certainly do some research on this online and try to find which cultures typically reply or speak or message in what ways. All right, so keep that in mind. Make sure that you proofread every one of your messages, especially when you're sending a message that's going to be the first impression. So let's say you've never talked to me before, you send me an email, it needs to be proper, right? Because that's the only impression I have of you. I've not met you before, I don't know anything about you, and all I can go off of is your email, right? So always make sure that you proofread, because you don't want any grammar mistakes or any mistakes in the writing. It's always easier for somebody else to point out your mistakes than it is for you to notice them. Your mistakes will not go unnoticed by the reader of the email. Typically, the reader is a lot more aware of mistakes as they're reading somebody else's work. So this can, at the end, really lead to a really bad first impression or the downfall. Let's say you're reaching out to somebody because you're looking to apply for a job and it's full of mistakes. That's the only impression that the employer has, and it could mean that they're not interested in hiring you just because of that, right? So don't let that be what ruins your opportunities. Make sure that you proofread and double check all of your work, especially your emails. You can use spell checkers. So what that means is like Google Translate. You can use those things, especially if you are not super confident in the English language. But you should probably ask somebody to double check your work for you. So you could ask a friend or an employment coach or your teacher, to say, and ask them to proofread your work. And like I said before, somebody else reading your work usually picks up on errors that you would not. So then you have another separate set of eyes that can point out some of the mistakes that you've made. All right, taking that extra 5-10 minutes can really make a big difference. Keep your fonts simple. So generally it is best to use between 10, 11, 12 point font and an easy to read font such as Arial, Calibri, and Times New Roman, things like that. Okay, the default ones for most emails will be one of these three. And try not to change it or make it too wild. There are some fonts that are a bit too much. I would not use cursive or any of those. Keep it simple, keep it readable, and that will be your best choice. And as for the font color, either white or black. If your background is white like mine is, you could use white. If your background is white, you should use black. Okay, I would not use color for my emails. When you receive emails, unless they're just sales marketing emails or spam, or try to reply to everything. It'll be good practice for you, and it'll also show that you are committed and responsive, and that's good for just networking in general. When somebody sends you an email, it's good practice to reply to it. Even what I'm getting at is, even if you shouldn't reply or you don't need to, if somebody says something and it just ends the conversation, a nice reply still is the good thing to do. Okay, so instead of going over an email that's not specifically addressed to you, you can use it as practice. It shows that you are reading it, that you are attentive, that you are there and responsive. Yeah. double check your attachments. This is a big one. This is a very important one. I've had many clients who have said or have sent me emails, and then they'll say, please take a look at my resume, and they never attached anything. I've made this mistake before as well. You type out your email so fast, and you send email, and you forget to attach your documents or whatever. So always forget to check. Always remember to check if you have your attachments, especially if you're applying for a job, right? If you don't attach your cover letter or your resume, and then you have to apologize afterwards and send another email with the attachments, it's a really, really bad first impression. And something like this could be the reason you don't get hired. So take a second, always remember to look for your attachments if you're sending them. And like I said before, you can certainly use translations and like Google Translate or any translating systems. But be careful with that, because not everything that's translated from one language to another is accurate, right? So if you're just relying on Google Translate to translate your documents, there could be errors. And again, as I said above, grammar and spelling mistakes can be a big error. So try to always have somebody else read over your work. You can use Google Translate, if you'd like, if it really helps you, but always make sure that somebody else is reading it if you're using that method. All right, so here are some examples of some very standard emails. So we talked about all the steps that you need to take, addressing somebody with the proper salutations or the proper greetings, and then having the body, and then the signature card. So example number 1, Dear Sue, right? My name is Scott. I work as an employment coach with the Multicultural Association and wanted to collaborate with you on a new project. I have a passion for helping newcomers find employment and would love to cover some important topics with your students. Let me know if you'd be interested in working with me. Cheers. And then my signature card. As you can see here, there is an error. So I did not check before sending this off, right? So what I would have been faulted on is, and I would love to cover some important topics with your students. So immediately somebody else reading this would have picked up on that, and that could have been an error that would have caused there to not be a connection between me and Sue. Next one is, Dear Adam, my name is Amir, and I'm contacting you today in regards to the sales manager position that you had advertised online. I have 7 years of experience in sales and 5 years of experience managing a team of 10+ members. I have attached my resume above so that you may browse my professional summary in more detail. Thank you in advance for taking the time to review my application. Please contact me anytime if you have any questions. Regards, and then the signature card. So these are really well formulated emails. All right, they're following all the steps. Apart from the one error here, there are no grammatical errors. Everything is formatted properly. It has a good greeting. It has the outro as well as the signature card. So these would be examples of good emails. So here's a template that you can use. This is how I suggest people write their emails, especially on the first time, but usually dear or whatever greeting, hello, and then your name, and then the reason you're reaching out to them. So insert the benefit you're offering or the request you have for them. And then you would add 2 to 3 sentences supporting your main point, okay? And then you add in a closing statement with regards or thank you very much, whatever, and then your signature block, okay? So this is a template that you can use. I would suggest using this template until you feel comfortable. And then when you get more comfortable or more informal with the person you're speaking to, you can take a more informal approach, right? But this is a good way to start off reaching out to somebody. And that is it for the email etiquette. Now, there is something that I can show you, and it's just a standard email, right? So if I wanted to start sending somebody an email, let's say I'll send it to myself. I find the person who I want to send it to. In the subject line, I would try to create something, as I said, that is relatable, that will make the person want to read it. So could get rid of that. And that's all it needs to be. So PowerPoint presentation on email etiquette. All right. All right, something like that, right? Perhaps I had made an arrangement with myself, Scott, to send somebody an email with an attachment, right? And so I would find that attachment and I would attach the document. I could say something on the outro. Okay, and then that would be it. So something along these lines, right? I have a good, strong email address. I have a good subject line. Okay, so PowerPoint presentation on email etiquette. And then I'm saying exactly what I'm contacting them for, thanking them for their time. And then of course, if I had the attachment, I would attach it here and then I would look it over, make sure that everything is correct. Okay. And at the end, I of course have my signature card. All right. So this is a very, very short example of how you write an email, but we're hitting all of the check marks. Okay. So proper email address, good subject header, a good body without any spelling mistakes, making sure that I have the attachments there, and then of course my subject outro and my signature card. Okay, so this is as easy as I can make it, and try to follow this format as much as you can in any type of reply that you're offering, unless it's a very, very close friend and you can be informal. Try to be as formal as possible when you're sending out an email. Okay. All right, so that will be the end of the presentation. As always, if you have any questions, you can certainly contact us and we will get back to you. All right, so thank you for spending the time watching this video. I hope that was informational. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that it can help you hopefully find a job that you're happy with here soon. All right.